Hi, everyone. Welcome to my first episode on how to become an ethical hacker in 2024 with no experience. Today, we're going to go over how to download the very popular HTTP proxy tool from Portswigger. We do have a few different versions. The one we are interested in downloading is Burp Suite Community Edition. It is free. You don't have to give your email. Make sure you download the proper OS. As we advance in our journey, you're going to see that you don't really need the Enterprise Edition. There's a lot of public tools and a lot of tools you can build yourself that will help you save the couple $100 a year on downloading it. If your company does pay for it, you might as well use it. But I do have multiple editions here. I wanted to uninstall it and install it for you guys so you guys can see exactly how it gets installed. So open that file. While it's installing, I want to introduce you guys to the Academy that Portswigger also has. Currently logged in. I do have an account and I started using this before I began my job. My current job right now is as a penetration tester, where I do test web application networks, mobile applications. Do you want to continue? Yes. I do test a wide range of applications. And during my internship that I started over 2 years ago, this was almost everything I used to help me get up to speed really fast. Within 2 months of using this, I was able to start finding vulnerabilities in organizations that have security teams, have had developers look into issues before, but Portugal has a great way of breaking down the nature of vulnerabilities and some common payloads that you can use if you do happen to find that kind of pattern that suggests it's a vulnerability. It's finishing installing. A couple things I've been just throwing out right now. First, HTTP proxy. What's an HTTP proxy? What we really need to understand about it is it acts as a middleman between an application, like a URL that you visit, and then your computer. So it allows you to intercept, modify, and even just analyze any sort of traffic that goes in and out of your browser into the application server. As application testers, we use this to modify requests, and you're going to see that shortly. Starting burp. I just kind of hit the default settings here. It doesn't really matter too much for us. So a couple things here that I want to introduce to you guys. We have our dashboard, just kind of shows you a lot of different things here. We're not too interested in all of this right now. We are going to look at to better understand what HTTP proxies do and what HTTP traffic is. We're going to go to the proxy tab here to our intercept. We're going to open a browser. What this is going to do, open up a browser that's already pre-configured to allow Burp Suite to proxy our traffic. So you can't just set up a proxy without trusting the proxy, essentially, that you allow that traffic to go through. So there are a couple steps we can do to install certificate into our browser or local computer so that we can actually intercept that traffic into the browser directly that of our choosing. For today, we're just going to open Chromium so you guys can see exactly what this proxy does into the browser directly that of our choosing. We're just going to open Chromium so you guys can see exactly what this proxy does. And we're going to kill two birds with one stone here. Let's go back to our academy here. I opened up that I thought was really interesting. This is an apprentice level lab, so they do have labs at different levels. Apprentice, practitioner, and expert. Apprentice is easiest level, baseline examples of what the vulnerability is and how it can be exploited. This level of execution out in the wild when you're testing and bug bounty, doing bug bounty hunting, or if you get a job as a tester. This is the baseline. Most companies should have this figured out by now. Practitioners start going deeper into the vulnerability and perhaps maybe chaining certain attacks together. An expert, you're definitely chaining attacks together. You're trying to find out the more up-to-date attacks of what's going on. So as you can see, I did a couple of the apprentices, some practitioner, and one expert for this one. We'll tackle more expert ones as we move along. But for now, let's go to the basic SSRF. Let's read through it. This lab has a stock check feature, which fetches data from an internal system. To solve the lab, change the stock check URL to access the admin interface at local. Admin and delete the user. Before we hunt for this vulnerability, it's important for us to understand what SSRF is. SSRF is server-side request forgery. It takes advantage of the application server itself to send out requests on behalf of the application server. And this can be found whenever a application is doing a URL check, whether it's retrieving contents or whether it's checking if you might see this in authentication requests where the domain itself could be in the data request body. All of this stuff is going to make more sense as we start looking into HTTP traffic. So let's just access the lab. So what this does, it creates a domain for us uh, that will allow us to test for this vulnerability. So this is our unique domain for this lab. So you can see it's not solved. What we're going to do is we're going to copy this URL and go right into our Chromium browser. And I want you guys to see exactly what happens with our HTTP history here. So as you can see, we're already getting requests from Google. This is a google.com get method URL, complete search. Here we can see status code is 200 and the type of the response is JSON. Boom. Let's hit it. All right, so here we can see everything immediately loaded. I like to sort them out by numbers. So here we can see the bottom request was the first one. As the requests go up, it's the more recent ones. Here's our baseline request. Double click it, it'll expand for us. You can exactly see what it is. This is our baseline get request with our host. This is the domain. Our user agent is just typically gives you information of the kind of browser we're using and where the request came from. These are the main request headers we're interested in, the ones I mentioned for now. And we see the response 200. Here it created a cookie for us, a session cookie. And here's the HTML that renders this page. And the cool thing about Burp Suite is you can just click that render on the response. And here's that HTML when it's rendered on the browser. So what we're going to do is go back to that lab. So this lab has a stock check feature which fetches data from an internal system. To solve the lab, change the stock check URL to access the admin interface. So what this is saying is we want to click around and cause the application to do some sort of stock check for us, right? So let's just click on an item and check the stock. We have 609 units. Cool. So let's see what that is. Stock check. Okay, intercept. Here you can put intercept on. What this does is it's gonna prevent any request that you do is gonna be stopped right here. So the browser is not gonna move on until this request is completed and forwarded. So here I click check stock, and because this is intercepted, we can see that we can see the full request that is causing this. All right. So here, let's look at this parameter. So post request. So a post request sends data to the application server. For us, this data uses the parameter stock API with the value HTTP stock. We like to shop.net product stock check production. Cool. So let's look back to what the lab is asking for us. To solve the lab, change the stock check URL to access the admin interface at HTTP local access and delete the user Carlos. So I'm just going to take this URL, localhost. Well, first I'm actually going to send this to repeater. What repeater does, it would allow me to repeat this request as many times as I want. So here's that first repeat. Got the number 69. So now we're actually going to use the that host that they gave us. Actually, before we do that, let me show you guys another tool that I like to use to validate for SSRF. So the tool that I like to use to validate for SSRF, actually, no. All right, so we intercepted the request, the post request that validates the stock as mentioned in the lab. Uh, Here we can see that the application sends a request to this domain, which then returns this value for us. So to validate that this is an SSRF finding, what I like to use is the website webhook.site. Webhook.site. What this does is it generates a random URL for us that we can use to monitor any sort of inbound or outbound traffic. So we're going to copy this URL from the top here, and we're going to paste it right in that stock API. And we're doing this just to validate that when we send this request, we're going to get pinged by the application's IP. So we got 500 internal server error. Um, so this is probably happening because, all right. So this is probably happening because Portswigger does not allow us to do requests to external domains. So in order for us to complete this lab, we will just go ahead and use the HTTP localhost admin, which was the domain they gave us. But I do want to point out that using a URL whose traffic you can monitor is the best way to validate if a request is vulnerable to SSRF, as it will tell you the origin of the IP. So if the IP belongs to you, it is not an SSRF attack. It's coming from you. And if it's coming from any other IP that you don't recognize, it's coming from the application server. So here we're going to use the stock API, HTTP localhost, post data, send it forward, render that page, see what we get. Cool. So it gives us an option to delete two users. What we're going to do is, so here I might be moving a little too fast here. So let me do it again. So I right clicked. And here we can see a bunch of different options. We are going to request in browser. What this is going to do is create a URL for us that is going to do the exact same request that this did on our browser. Cool. So now that it's here, we can essentially just go ahead and delete Carlos. Okay, so it's saying I have to be logged in as administrator or if requested from loopback. Okay, so we're just gonna copy this URL because if we see here our URL, the delete action is done through a URL query parameter. So what we're gonna do is add it onto here. So I know admin's already there, but I copied the whole thing. So boom, we're gonna send that over. And if this works out, our lab is gonna be done. It's gonna say solved at the top, and it is solved. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. On our next lab, on the next video, we are going to be going over other types of attacks, other types of vulnerabilities, and introduce how can you download the certificate that Burp Suite has, so that you can intercept traffic from other browsers that are not the pre-configured Chromium that already comes with. And also how to set it up so you can intercept all local traffic for any sort of like application testing that is not on the browser directly. So here's a little preview of what you're going to have to learn how to do here. But for now, peace, love and muscles, guys, and happy hacking.